Diphtheria. Diphtheria. Introduction.
It is possible that you may have never heard of diphtheria outside the context of vaccination, but it was once an endemic in the United States population.
In the 1880s, American prospectors rode dog sleds into snowy regions they couldn't get to any other way. Pioneers soon followed, settling Alaska on dog power. Today, the mushers in the Iditarod honor those days. They follow a route that was forged during a famous Alaska rescue. It happened in January 1925. The western Alaskan city of Nome was in the grip of a deadly outbreak of diphtheria. Thousands of people could die unless an antitoxin serum hundreds of miles away in Anchorage could reach them in time. To get the serum there before it was too late, 20 mushers banded together to drive their dogs across Alaska's frozen wilderness in a daring relay. They managed to deliver the serum to Nome in just 127 hours, saving the people of the city and making headlines across the nation. Today, every musher who races in the Iditarod is honoring that achievement.
Diphtheria outbreaks used to happen in cold winter months when people stayed inside, in close contact with one another for warmth. There have been less than 5 cases reported in the United States in the past decade and 4,530 cases worldwide.
With statistics like this, you would think that it would be approaching eradication like polio. However, 3 to 5% of tropical residents are nasal carriers. Due to the anti-vaccination movement and general ambivalence towards booster shots, people do still become infected. The immunocompromised, people who live in poor environmental conditions, and children are the most commonly infected.
Microbiology.
Diphtheria's infection is caused by Corynebacterium diphtheriae. This bacteria is a gram-positive club-shaped bacillus with no capsule and no flagella, often found in V and Y-shaped arrangements. They spread directly through respiratory droplets from coughing, or indirectly through objects that have come into contact with infected individuals. The primary virulence factor is the production of an exotoxin. Through lysogenic conversion, some bacteria gain the ability to produce this cytotoxin. Corynebacteriophages insert the tox gene into the chromosome of the infected cells. When this phage beta gene is expressed, the cytotoxin is produced by the bacteria and is now free to circulate throughout the body. Through the circulatory system, the exotoxin can affect the heart, kidneys, and nervous system, leading to possible death. The cytotoxin produced has a lethal dose of 100 to 150 nanograms per kilogram of body weight. It is an AB exotoxin. The A subunit is the active toxin component, and the B subunit helps the whole complex cross into the cell. To enter a cell, the toxin must first bind to receptors on the plasma membrane of somatic cells. The B subunit of the toxin binds to these receptors and initiates receptor-mediated endocytosis of the whole toxin. An endosome forms around the toxin as it is transported across the membrane. After acidification of the endosome, the A subunit is released into the cytoplasm and stops protein translation by irreversibly inhibiting elongation factors. The cell will eventually die as it is no longer able to produce new proteins.
According to the CDC in the United States, before there was treatment for diphtheria, up to half of the people who got the disease die from it. Once a doctor suspects or diagnoses diphtheria, it is important to start treatment and not to wait for laboratory confirmation. Getting treatment quickly for diphtheria is important. Diphtheria treatment today involves using diphtheria antitoxin and antibiotics. Diphtheria antitoxin is used to stop the poison produced by the bacteria. It is made from the blood plasma of horses that have been immunized against diphtheria toxin. It works by neutralizing the toxin produced by Corynebacterium diphtheriae. Antibiotics treatment is the second arm of treatment. Many antibiotics are effective, including penicillin and erythromycin. The goal is both to kill the organism and to eliminate toxin production. Penicillin is an antimicrobial drug against gram-positive bacteria. It is an inhibitor of cell wall synthesis. Erythromycin, which belongs to the macrolide group, is an inhibitor of protein synthesis. According to the CDC, the best way to prevent diphtheria is to get vaccinated. Vaccinating young children and adults with diphtheria toxoid, an inactivated toxin, is extremely effective means of prevention.
Anatomy.
There are multiple forms of diphtheria. There's a cutaneous form that starts as a small, painless bump and then grows into an open lesion. This can be caused by poor hygiene or a break in the skin if it occurs in a location where the bacteria is endemic.
These lesions started as an insect bite on a British traveler who went to the tropics on vacation. The infection wasn't initially diagnosed, and thus the antitoxin wasn't administered promptly. The sores have mostly responded to the antibiotics given, but require additional treatment with the antitoxin.
The location of the infection determines the symptoms experienced. In the nasal version, the patient experiences a watery, bloody discharge. This version is the most rapidly spread as droplets from the nose can be aspirated by others. The pharyngeal version happens when the upper throat connects to the nasal passage. This is the most common form and shares many signs and symptoms with the laryngeal version. This involves a sore throat, fever, and rapid fatigue, and in this case of laryngeal version, a severe cough and difficulty breathing.
This is an illustration of the buildup in the pseudomembrane. The bacteria enters the airway and produces the exotoxin. The death of the cells in the respiratory tract causes the buildup of the pseudomembrane. As these cells are dying and additional cells take their place and are also killed off, the membrane builds. This forms a thick layer that causes blockage of the airway.
It can also lead to a condition called bull neck, pictured here.
Here's an image of the membrane.
I can't be the only one who's thinking, why don't we just pull that off and debride the area so that poor kid can breathe?
Well, that would be a bad idea because removing the membrane causes the toxin to spread even faster.
Oh. So this toxin sounds really nasty.
The most dangerous effect it has are actually on the heart and on the nervous system. It can cause permanent nerve damage affecting sight, vocal cords, and speech. However, the cardiac symptoms can be lethal. Myocarditis, or inflammation of the myocardium, which is the muscular middle layer of the heart, occurs. This complication can lead to disturbances in heart rhythm, also known as arrhythmia, and ultimately to heart failure.
So diphtheria is a gram-positive rod with a virulence factor that includes a pretty hefty exotoxin that targets cells wherever it lands. Vaccination can prevent it, and early treatment is essential to increase the survivability of those who are infected.